The Carney pivot. Why Canada just cut a deal with China. If you've been watching the news this week, you've seen the images. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, standing in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, shaking hands with President Xi Jinping. It's the first time a Canadian Prime Minister has visited China in nearly a decade. And let's be honest, it's the most controversial foreign policy move Canada has made in a generation. For the last few years, the story has been simple. China is the disruptive power. The relationship was frozen. We had the two Michaels, the trade wars, the election interference scandals. The ice wasn't just thick. It was impenetrable. Everything changed this week. Mark Carney didn't just break the ice, he melted it down and bottled it. He's walking away from Beijing with a massive, brand new agreement that changes the rules of the game for Canadian farmers, drivers, and, crucially, our relationship with the United States. It's a deal that swaps canola for cars. But why now? Why, when tensions are so high, would Carney risk angering Washington and alienating voters in Ontario? Today, we're going to tear apart the Carney pivot. We're going to look at the deal, the gamble, and the cold, hard banker's logic behind it. This isn't just about trade, it's about survival. Okay, let's strip away the diplomatic fluff and look at the raw numbers. What did Carney actually agree to? It's a swap, a classic quid pro quo. First, the give Canada has agreed to slash tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Do you remember back in 2024 when Canada followed the US and slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese electrical vehicles? Well, Carney just punched a hole in that wall. Under this new deal, Canada will allow 49,000 Chinese EVs into the country every year at a low tariff rate of just 6.1%. These aren't luxury cars. These are the affordable EVs1s that cost under $35,000. Carney is effectively letting Chinese competition flood into the bottom end of the market. Now, the get. In exchange, China is dropping its retaliatory hammer on Canadian agriculture. Over the last year, Beijing had crushed Canadian farmers with massive tariffs on canola, seed up to 85% plus restrictions on beef, pork, and lobster. As of today, those canola tariffs dropped to 15%. The bans on lobster and peas gone. This reopens a billion-dollar door for Western Canadian farmers who are bleeding cash. The official line, Carney is selling this as a win for the consumer. He's saying, I'm getting you cheaper electric cars so you can actually afford to drive, and I'm saving our farmers from bankruptcy. But if you scratch the surface, this is about much more than grocery prices and car payments. This is a fundamental shift in who Canada chooses to do business with. The strategy, the U.S. problem. To understand why Carney did this, you have to look at the map end. You have to look south of the border. We all know the United States has become, let's call it, unpredictable. With Washington doubling down on protectionism, tariffs, and America First policies, Canada has been feeling the squeeze. We've been threatened with tariffs on our aluminum, our lumber, and even our energy. Carney, remember, is a former central banker. He thinks in terms of risk management. His logic is, if 75% of our trade is with one country, and that country decides to squeeze us, we are dead. That is an unacceptable risk for a guy like Carney. So, this trip to China, it's a hedge. It's an insurance policy. Carney is signaling to Washington that Canada has other options. He's saying, if you lock us out, we have a market of 1.4 billion people over there who are hungry for our energy and our food. He really laid it all out at the press conference, saying he's all about playing other games with other players. That is diplomatic speak for. We are not a vassal state of the U.S. It's a bold gamble. He's betting that the U.S. needs Canadian oil and minerals too much to punish us for this. But make no mistake, Washington is watching, and they are not happy about a NATO ally opening the side door to Chinese technology. The domestic brawl, East and West. Now, let's bring it back home, because while this deal might make sense in a boardroom, it is causing a massive political brawl here in Canada. Carney has effectively pitted Ontario against the West. In the West, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. This deal is a lifesaver. Premier Scott Moe and the agricultural associations are cheering. They needed that Chinese market back. For them, Carney just delivered a massive economic win. He saved the family farm. But in Ontario, it's a different story. Ontario is the heart of Canada's auto manufacturing. Doug Ford and the auto unions are furious. They see this as a betrayal. They've spent billions trying to build a domestic EV battery industry with taxpayer money. And now Carney is letting cheap Chinese cars undercut them. They are calling it a Trojan horse that will destroy Canadian manufacturing jobs. Carney's counter-argument. He says Canadian manufacturers should focus on high-end cars and heavy industry, not the cheap commuter cars that China makes better and cheaper. But try telling that to an auto worker in Windsor. This is the tightrope Carney is walking. He's trading blue-collar manufacturing security for agricultural stability and cheaper consumer goods. The banker Prime Minister. This trip tells us everything we need to know about Mark Carney's style of leadership. A traditional politician might have avoided China. It's too messy. It's too risky. The human rights issues alone, which, by the way, were barely mentioned in the official press release, usually scare leaders away. But Carney isn't a traditional politician. He's an investment banker. He's looking at the balance sheet. He saw an inefficiency. High tariffs equals high prices for Canadians, plus lost revenue for farmers. He saw a risk over-dependence on the U.S., and he made a cold, calculated trade. He separated the politics from the economics. He's calling it a strategic partnership, specifically focused on energy and trade, trying to cordon off the thorny security issues. Is it cynical, maybe? Is it pragmatic? Absolutely. He's betting that Canadians are tired of high prices and economic instability, and that they care more about the cost of an EV and the price of canola than they do about geopolitical posturing. So, what is the takeaway? The Carney pivot is real. Canada has just stepped out of the American shadow and cut a deal with the world's second-largest economy. We are getting cheaper cars. Our farmers are getting their market back. But the cost is a furious auto sector and a very suspicious Washington, D.C. Carney thinks he can balance these two giants, the U.S. and China, without getting crushed in the middle. It's the ultimate high-stakes juggling act. If he pulls it off, he stabilizes the Canadian economy. If he drops the ball, we could face a trade war on two fronts. What do you think? Is cheaper corn and cheaper cars worth the risk of getting cozy with Beijing? Or did Carney just sell out our auto industry? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how this lands with you. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that actually matter.